WNST, Towson for a long period of time, and actually spent his formative time down in Arkansas with the Woo Pig Sueys and all that stuff. He's now out in Denver doing sports radio at 1340 AM as well as at Mile High Sports. We welcome one of our defending champs back, TJ Carpenter, still a little hungover from that Kansas City Royals parade a couple years ago, now trying to find some of that action out in Denver. What's going on, man? I spent 5 days in Denver last week. What a place. That's a good place you found to live out there, TJ.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, you have the nice view of the mountains. I still get distracted driving to work, which isn't great. But it is a beautiful place to live, no question.
So you've only been there like 2 months, right?
Right, yeah. I started in April. We did a little trial run in February, but yeah, I've been out here since April, running strong. Got married in May, so there was a little break in there, but
just a little break.
yeah, just a little break.
Well, I want to
get married and go on my honeymoon.
I want to say this to you because I was out there last week, and I haven't talked to anybody from Denver on the radio at all this week, and I've been going out there for 20, 25 years. I've seen those mountains that you talk about and driving along and being a little distracted by the snow or the green or the bald eagle that may be going by at any point. And I'd never been to Wyoming, although I had threatened. This was the trip where I finally made it to Red Rocks. I finally drove to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I finally drove up into the Rocky Mountains and up into the forest and up to Grand Lake and out toward Vail. Woo, what a place out there. Dude, I don't know if you've done any of that yet, and I know you see them, there's gold up there and then their hills and all that stuff. There is so much to see in those mountains. I'm almost embarrassed that I waited till my 48th year on the planet to go visit it all.
Yeah, we feel like we've done a lot already, but it hasn't even kind of brimmed the surface yet because there's so many hiking. If you like hiking, you like outdoors, Colorado's the place to be.
I think if you like biking or walking your kid in a park there's so much park space and trails and bike trails just down in Denver alone, let alone what's going on up in the mountains. It's a pretty magical place you got going out there, Rocky Mountain High in Colorado. And one thing that we missed out on, and we did do Red Rocks and Tom Petty and Joe Walsh and all that, is the Rockies were home the whole time we were there, and I didn't even consider going to a ball game. I did 30 ballparks in 30 days a couple summers ago, as you know, and I made it to Colorado and all that stuff, but certainly a better brand of baseball being played here this summer than there's been in a long time. I almost feel a little remiss that I didn't go see the Rockies play. They're playing such good baseball.
Yeah, I think 2007 was the last time they were really good. Obviously made the World Series that year, but no, this is fairly uncharted territory for what is still a young franchise, but nevertheless, they're not used to having relief pitching like they've had so far. They're not used to having the best record in the National League like they've got so far. But obviously in that division, it's going to be really tough because the Dodgers are so set up for sustained success. It's going to be very difficult to get them off your heels or maybe even keep up with them in the later parts of the season. But Greg Holland, the addition there, I was curious how he was going to react to Tommy John surgery. Because a lot of times those relievers, they're max effort guys. So, sometimes that surgery goes the opposite direction for him. But with Holland, he's been fantastic. Perfect 22 for 22 in save situations so far. That's been huge. But it's also been big that guys like Charlie Blackmon have stepped up offensively. Blackmon leads the majors in RBIs, and he's a leadoff hitter. Which is just insane.
And he's a bit anonymous, to an American League East place because we don't see when we're familiar with Mark Reynolds, but when you see Charlie Blackmon, you say, who's that guy, right?
Right, yeah. He's always been a good, not great player, and so being in the leadoff spot, kind of natural for him coming into this year, but, he's been hitting like a cleanup hitter. You mentioned Mark Reynolds. They offered him, he was getting minor league offers. Essentially minor league contracts, and he's come in and taken advantage of a couple of injuries and played at an MVP caliber level. So having him, Nolan Arenado, Carlos Gonzalez is probably set to get hot here in the next month or so. They just have so many offensive weapons that it's made up for some pretty good young pitching that nobody was really expecting to be able to rely upon this year. John Gray's been out so far, so their starting rotation has looked a little weird. but they've been able to sustain some success and get some really good production, which is why they lead the National League in wins.
Well, that's always the story, right, for them is pitching and who's going to come there. We go back to Nagel and Hampton and, 15, 20 years ago, and ERAs are always up. I knew the air was thin when I was climbing those steps and those boulders out at Red Rocks, and I couldn't feel my chest anymore. I thought I was having a coronary. And I know for the pitchers out there, the thin air has been really the question for the franchise is that can they ever win given the ballpark and given the pitching that's necessary to win there?
Yeah, every time you see an offensive explosion, everybody always cries, well, Coors Field. And there's some truth to that. 18% increase in production over the average ballpark in major leagues. So, I mean, there is something to the elevation. There's no doubt about it. But to be honest, that's really helped the Rockies' opponents so far this season more than it's helped them. They do have a winning record at home, but it's not nearly as good as their record on the road. And that's been a point of contention for some fans. They think that the Rockies should be better at home. But to this point, it's really been their road successes that have helped them so much.
We talked about Mark Reynolds being a former Oriole that's playing at an MVP kind of caliber, and the thin air certainly would help him out. Gerardo Parra has had quite a little resurrection back in the National League, right?
Yeah, obviously we'll continue to see how he progresses, but I think the Rockies are very pleased with what they've been able to get with him and a lot of their guys. They've got a lot of guys on one-year deals, so I would not be in the least bit surprised if they make some kind of move at the trade deadline. They really need to because they need to add another arm to that rotation. They've got some guys. Jose Quintana, I feel like is kind of on their radar as somebody they might go after. But there's no question they've got the pieces to move. Having a wealth of pieces on offense is certainly going to help them down the stretch.
We've always felt like around here with Machado and Scope and even Adam Jones, we've had some young players come through here and develop. I don't know where the ceiling on Nolan Arenado is, but I'd like to see it. I mean, he, along with Lindor, along with Correa, Machado, Harper, Trout, all of these young players. But for me, he's the centerpiece of everything that's going to happen there in Colorado over the next 5 years.
Yeah, he's got to be. He's so talented. I think the thing that really stands out to you is his defense. He makes exceptional throws look very normal, very commonplace. So when you see him make some of these, web gems type plays, it's kind of just sort of like, yeah, that's kind of what you expect from Nolan Arenado. But I do think he's the best defensive third baseman in baseball. We'll see if he can continue to add on to that resume offensively. We know he's capable of it. I think you're absolutely right. If there is somebody that you look to as the face of the franchise, the future face of the franchise, it's definitely Arenado. Even though, we haven't even mentioned DJ LeMahieu. They just have so many guys who can swing the bat well. It's a really good time to be a Rockies fan.
He is TJ Carpenter. He came from Kansas City out to Denver a couple months ago. He's now doing sports radio for Mile High Sports at 1340 out in the Rocky Mountain High area where we enjoy. Man, you've been to Boulder yet? Boulder's a hell of a place, TJ Carpenter.
Yeah, actually, we drove through Boulder at the worst possible time. We went to Golden Gate National Park and came back through Boulder, and they had this big festival they were doing on the weekend. So it took us about 2 hours to drive through downtown Boulder. We're just going to go down there and shop, and it turns out it was a nightmare over there because there were so many people. But it's a beautiful town. Now,
you left Kansas City, you come to Denver. Obviously, that's going to rub people on your Twitter the wrong way on the other side of this thing. Macklin getting thrown out onto the street. From the Ravens' perspective, and I know the Bills and other teams are interested, boy, that's got to be sort of shocking to the Chiefs fan base and probably kind of titillating to the Broncos fan base to think that, well, maybe they're not going to be as good as we thought they were going to be. Ditto for Oakland or anybody else who thinks they're going to win in the West.
Yeah, it's so perplexing to me that the Chiefs did that. And look, to be honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan of the GM there, John Dorsey. He's kind of like the Mr. Magoo of NFL GMs. It's his GMing style is to walk off the side of a building and then walk onto a swinging I-beam, which then takes him over the highway. Like, it's just sort of, I think a lot of times he lucks into good decisions when the actual decision he makes is a bad one. And that may end up being the case here, or maybe they know something I don't know. But to me, I get that you feel like you can save some cap space by cutting Jeremy Maclin, but over the next 2 years, he's still costing you $7 million. So, even though you're only getting hit with 2.4 this year and then 4 point whatever next year on the cap, it's still, I feel like this is inexplicable, especially when you need wide receivers for Alex Smith to throw the ball to. At this point, I mean, essentially, they're going to be stuck between Chris Conley, who's been an underachiever to this point in his career, and Tyreek Hill, who is just one offseason removed from knowing maybe 30% of the playbook. I mean, they were comfortable giving him like 5 or 6 things to do a game. Now, granted, he's an explosive player, but is he ready to be a number one option? I don't think so. So this is a very odd move to me, especially given their need at wide receiver. So a little bit strange to be retooling your offense in a year in which most people expect you to contend for the division.
TJ, for you coming into Denver at this point, obviously the Super Bowl and Peyton riding off into the sunset and where that defense is right now and what they're trying to do offensively, this is a real transition period for them. I don't know what to make of the Broncos, much like many people don't know what to make of the Ravens here this offseason.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know what to make of the Broncos because there's nothing to make. They have a first-year coach in Vance Joseph, who we don't really know anything about, other than that he's a decent defensive coordinator. That they're going to run a similar system with speed rushes and things like that here in Denver. But we don't know anything about their quarterback situation, other than that it's bad. We don't know anything about their offensive line. We don't know anything about their running backs or tight ends. We know that their wide receivers are okay, but they were bad against the run last year, and we don't know whether or not the things that they did to solve that are going to help. We do know that the secondary is a year older, and that the pass rushers are essentially a year older. That they didn't really add any youth there that you expect to get a lot from. So I would tell you this: I'm not telling you that the Broncos are going to be bad. I'm telling you that there's no way of knowing whether they're going to be good or bad at this point because of some of the factors we just discussed.
Well, the Oakland Raiders also,
in my mind, of all, is the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think the Raiders have the most talent, right? I mean, we can all agree on that, but they have a quarterback coming back from pretty catastrophic injury, and I know what we went through last year with Flacco around here, and even when Tom Brady, Carson Palmer, any of these guys that came back from sort of one of these heinous injuries, that there's going to be a period of time, it's going to be some healing involved there. I think it's certainly sitting there. I don't think there's any super team in the West, that's for sure.
No, but I do think the Raiders are probably the closest. As you mentioned, they've got a lot of talent, and their coach has a track record of success, so that really, really helps. But, the Denver Broncos have the best pass rusher in the National Football League, and that's really going to help them work through a lot of these struggles, I think. I don't expect them to be, atrocious, like Browns bad. They're not going to be 2-14 or something like that, but I do expect them to struggle, especially given the fact that there are a lot of other good coaches in the division and good quarterbacks too. I mean, don't forget Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers can beat you, even if the Chargers aren't going to be any good. He can steal a win against a good team, and nobody knows that better than Denver.
Even if they're going to be playing in a soccer stadium in Los Angeles. Hey, it's great to have you on, TJ. Congrats on the new gig out there at Mile High Sports. We'll be following you out on Twitter as well. You can follow TJ Carpenter at TJ Carpenter Show out on Twitter as well as at Mile High Sports. Take care, pal. We'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Nestor, and we're going to have you on soon. Talk some. So all things Baltimore.
Give my love to Fort Collins. We'll see you soon.
All right, will do.
You got it. He is TJ Carpenter and TJ Carpenter Show out on Twitter. I had so much fun out in the Rocky Mountains last week. I'm trying to do my travels now to sort of add places that I've never been or go to places I've been but do things I've never done. So we're doing a lot of that this year, certainly on the backside of my wife's struggles and two-time battle with leukemia. That part of the bucket list and surviving and doing stuff like that is, well, let's not go to the Rockies game. Let's go to Boulder instead, or let's drive to Wyoming and get a cheeseburger. Let's go up in the mountains and see the snow and have our ears pop and have my chest feel like it's going to explode because I can't breathe. But that was last week. This week, we're just here in Baltimore doing sports radio. I'm out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. From anywhere in the world on your mobile device, just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Planet Fitness sponsors our morning newspaper that delivers to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to enjoy yourself, get in shape, come on inside, get a little bit of instruction on how to do that. Planet Fitness does all that for you, and you can learn more at planetoftriumphs.com. Our tech service is our best service here at WNST.net, and sometimes it's bad news, as it was with Tavon Young last week, as it was with Dennis Pitt on Friday. We're hoping to send some good news out at some point, but it's always breaking news. You always get it first on the WNST tech service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.